Hi all. Today we are going to see about the association analysis or association rule mining. So that is the topic which we are going to see today. So for starting this, before starting this, I just wanted to tell you these are the things which we are going to see in the following slide. So association rules, identifying the various application areas where we use association rule mining, and then the rule of interestingness, a priori algorithm, and if time permits, FP growth algorithm. Otherwise, we will keep it for the next class. So, before moving on to the algorithmic details, we need to have an understanding about the topic called market basket analysis. Okay, so what is basically market basket analysis? Okay, so say if you're going to buy bread, okay, so what is the first thing which will come into your mind? Okay, I'm going to eat bread. Okay, so I need some butter, okay, or I need some jam, so I will automatically think about whether butter is there at home, whether jam is there at home, or say if I need eggs, I will think about egg, right? Or say if you're going to buy flour and sugar, say you're going planning to make a birthday cake for your mommy, right? So you will think about, okay, flour, sugar, eggs, okay, baking soda, okay, baking powder, right? Nutella or whatever which comes in your mind. So in whether you are going to make a chocolate cake or a vanilla cake or whatever it is, accordingly, you will think about all the other items which comes in your mind. So so there is a pattern which comes in your mind, like say if it is going to be cake, then okay, I need flour, I need sugar, I need egg, so I need baking soda. So all these things comes as a pattern in your mind, right? And when you think about bread, right, okay, bread, butter, jam, say baked beans, all these things comes in your mind. So there is basically a pattern for every human being when they go to buy something, right? So this is inside the brain of the person who is going to buy, right? So if I'm able to understand what a person is going to think and what a person is going to buy as a say supermarket store manager, then I could increase the sales, isn't it? It would have been really nice if I'm able to understand what my customer is going to buy next. Say if I'm able to predict what my customer is going to buy, it would have been really easy for me, right? So that is exactly what is called as the market basket analysis. Say you have certain customers, as you have kept a store, you have got certain customers. So what will be the pattern in which the customers would buy, so that you could say you could rearrange the items in your store, so that by the time the person comes to pick up the bread, okay, he will see butter, okay, so he will remember about it. Okay, I need to buy butter. Okay, not only butter, I need milk. So if you could keep the items in such a way that, okay, it is visible for the customer, so that you could increase the sales ultimately. So that is your aim. Fine. So in market basket analysis, what you are trying to find out is nothing but you are trying to find out the frequent patterns in which a customer is going to shop. So you're going to predict the frequent patterns. That is what you're going to understand or see in market basket analysis. Okay. So now moving forward, so this is exactly what we have told here. So we want to discover the patterns, or these patterns are otherwise called as association rules. Okay, so how can we use that? Yes, we could use it. We could group the items and that is sold together, and we can give new products to the customers if they are asking for something. Say whenever the person is coming to say the cake mix, okay, they are also asking for strawberry, maybe the gel, right? So you could think about it and you could say that, okay, it is already there. So many, if few of the customers are frequently asking you the same question, then you could understand, okay, so strawberry gel may be used in for cake making, so you can buy it and keep it. So that could increase your sales. And email customers about this discount, so that they have an urge to buy things from your store, right? And Amazon, like your Amazon recommendations, like the person who bought this has also bought that, so why can't you just think about buying this, right? So the kind of the recommendations, and you could analyze and you could predict. So if you have got the data of how your customers have bought things, then from that particular data you could basically predict the customer behavior, which could be used to rearrange your stores, or say buy and keep new products, or email customers, or recommendations. In whichever way, you could increase the sales ultimately, right? So this is kind of the business intelligence which you could bring onto the table, right? Now, so it's just, market basket analysis means it's just that. No, you can use it for different so this association rule mining could be used for various applications like credit card transactions. Okay, you had got a certain kind of rules which has been followed for your transactions, but you could see a different transaction, a different rule. Okay, so say then you could use it for credit card transactions, then telephone calling patterns, right? Then fraudulent insurance claims, so purchases of telecom services. So these are all certain places where you could use association rule mining, so where you could understand what are the frequent patterns in which the things are happening. So if you find out an infrequent pattern, that would help you to identify where it has went wrong, right? And then comes, so that is nothing but association analysis or association rule mining. Now, there are certain basic terms which you have to understand before moving further. So, you now know that in market basket analysis, you're going to discover patterns and generate a set of rules, right? So, it could be the connection between two products or more products or whatever it is, right? So, they are just called as the association rules. Say when we consider a market store, so there are item sets. Say if I am buying, say if I consider the store, all the items in that store could be just say as could be defined as the item sets. Okay. Say if I am buying just bread, butter, jam, then I could say that that is an item set. Okay. And the next one is association rules. So moving a bit more deeper onto association rules, what is it basically? So it is basically an implication. It is basically called as an implication in predicate calculus. So what is that? So it is we don't make it more complex. We can make it more simple by saying it has got two parts where you have got an if part and a then part. That means if as a customer, if I buy bread and butter, then I would also buy eggs, right? So it is a simple if then rule. So it could be drilled down to a simple if then rule. So association rules are so simple, it's just an implication. Okay, it is nothing but if you buy bread and butter, then you will also buy eggs. Okay, so can we generalize it? Can you make it more, can you formulate it to a formula? Yes. So I do have certain items like I1, I2, etc. up to ij. So if I am buying these items, there is a high tendency that this customer will also buy the item ik. Okay, so if we are able to identify these patterns from the data which we get by from the how the customer buy, how their customer buying pattern is, then they are called as the association rules. So association rules are as simple as that. It is just an if and then rule. Now moving further, so how can you identify, say there are n number of rules, you can make enough number of rules, but how can you understand or identify which rule is actually applicable for my store, or say which rule will be more important for my store? How could I do that? How can I do that? Right. So in order to understand that, the authors has come out with some technique called measures of rule interestingness. So it is nothing but two different terms which you have to understand here. One is support and the other one is confidence. So everything is probability. Basically, drill downs to probability in mathematics, right? So if the rules, say if the rules which we have identified, if the association rules which we have identified, say from the customer data, if we are able to um, satisfy a minimum support threshold and a minimum confidence threshold, we could say, oh yes, okay, these association rules are good, we could consider them. Say if it doesn't satisfy the minimum support threshold and the minimum confidence threshold, we could easily ignore them. So we don't have to bombard our system with lot of association rules. We could just identify and pick up the strong rules from them, right? And there are so many other rule of interestingness or measures like lift, gain and Laplace, and so many different coverage. There are so many different measures, but here in for this session or for our sessions, we will just consider just minimum support and minimum confidence. Now we should understand what is support. So in order to understand support, we should know what is support count. Okay. Say if there is an item I1. Okay. Say if there is an item I1. Say that item I1 has been bought say 100 times. Then I would say that the support count is 100. That's all. Say I have an item X. Say I have an item X. And for that particular item, so this is the item X. What is the support count of X? It is very simple. The number of transactions containing X. Say in my supermarket at a particular time or day, say 100 times this X has been bought. Then I could say S count of X is nothing but 100. As simple as that. Now, so this is the support count. The term is support count. Now we are going to understand another term called support, which is just the probability. Okay. It is nothing but upon the total number of transactions, say 1000 transactions has happened in that particular store a day. Okay. In that 100 transactions has got X in it. So how can we calculate support of X? It is nothing but 100 divided by 1000. That's all. As simple as that. It's a simple probability. So the item set is called frequent if its support is equal to or greater than support threshold. Say if I keep the support threshold as 50%. So for that particular store, I'm keeping the support threshold as 50%. Say 10 by, say 100 by 1000. Okay. So whatever be your value which you get, that value has to be equal to or greater than the support threshold. Then I could say I have to keep the association rule. That's all, right? So hope you understood support. So support count is nothing but the number of transactions which contain that particular item, okay, or set of items. And support is nothing but the number of the transactions that containing that item or set of items divided by total number of transactions which has happened. Now, what is confidence? So confidence basically, to make you understand easier, it is conditional probability. That means, say, if you want to understand, it is conditional on one thing to another. So you cannot just find confidence of X. It has to be confidence of X implies Y. So it is a rule which has happened. It is a rule. Okay. So here, what we could say is that considering that X has happened. So you have a prior rule here. So you are considering, you have an assumption here. Considering that X has happened already, what is the probability of occurrence of X and Y together? So that's what it is. So it is as simple as that. Say X has happened in your store for 1000 times. Okay. X and Y together has happened for say 50 times. Okay. So what you would do is you will have 50 divided by 100. Okay. So that percentage will be nothing but your confidence percent. So the number of transactions, okay, which contains both X and Y upon number of transactions containing X. So there are so many transactions which has happened in your store including X. But in that you need to specifically find out the number of the transactions where both X and Y has happened. So here you are not taking the whole transactions like in the support. Instead, you are taking the transactions which contain X. And in those transactions, you are trying to identify the number of the transactions which contain both X and Y. Okay. So that is nothing but the confidence. So you have understood two different measures. One is support and one is confidence. Now, can we do a small problem to understand what it is? Yes. So this is the set of the transactions which has happened. So these are the transaction IDs and these are the items which are, so there are A, B, C, D, E, F. So these are the different items which you have. Now you are asked to find out, say if you are given with the rule, okay, this is an association rule. That means if a customer is buying A, what is the chance that he will also buy C? And if the customer is buying C, what is the chance that, or what is the likelihood that he will buy A as well? So for that you need to find out what is a support, what is a confidence. This is what your problem statement is all about. So now we will find this support and confidence for A implies C. So for this, first one is support. So number of the transactions which contain A. Okay. So how many transactions are there which contain A? So there are 1, 2, 3. 3 transactions which contain A divided by total number of transactions. What is the total number of transactions? 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 transactions. So 75%. Now, what is confidence? So confidence is upon A implies C. So confidence that given A has happened so and so number of times. What is the probability that A and C has happened together, right? So number of the transactions which contain both A and C out of all the transactions which contain A. There are 3 transactions which contain A. In that there are 2 transactions where A and C has occurred together, right? So 2 by 3, so you will get 66%. So this is nothing but the support and the confidence for the rule A implies C. Now, for the rule C implies A, will it be same? We will see. So for the support, what we have to do is, so number of the transactions which contain C. So there are 2 transactions which contain C divided by total number of transactions 4. So 50%. And for confidence, the number of the transactions which contain both C and A, that means it will all be the same. So 2 divided by total number of transactions which contain C. So here it is 2. So 100%. So for the transaction C implies A, the support is 50% and the confidence is 100%. So this is what you could understand from these two. Okay. So yeah, this is for your A implies C and this is for C implies A. Okay. So now you know how to calculate both support and confidence. Now we will move forward. So there are certain rules which you have to keep in mind, like, say if you have a data set which is given to you, which contains n different items. So there is a common formula which you could use, because 2 raised to n minus 1 data sets will be there, because you will not consider that root data set where you have started, right? So 2 raised to n minus 1 item sets could be there. And what is the number of the association rules? For that, you have a formula which you could follow, that is 3 raised to n minus 2 raised to n plus 1 plus 1. So this is the formula which you could follow. So this is the formula which you could follow, that is 3 raised to n minus 2 raised to n plus 1 plus 1. So this many number of association rules will be there, and if there are n items. Now moving further, we will move on to how can we basically find all the association rules. Okay, so there is a wonderful algorithm named association rule mining for that. Basically this association rule mining is a 2-step process. So this is the simplest algorithm which you could see, that is, the first step is nothing but you need to find out the frequent item sets, and then you have to identify which of the association rules are stronger, right? So these are the 2 steps in association rule mining. So first one is nothing but identifying the frequent item sets, or you could say that the frequent patterns in your data, right? So once you understand that particular thing, you need to understand, from those frequent item sets, you need to identify all the rules, and from all the rules you need to identify which is the strongest one among them, right? So these are the 2 steps which are there in the association rule mining. So moving a bit more deeper, you could say that, okay, where this a priori and the FP growth comes in. So these are 2 different algorithms which helps you to find out the frequent item sets. So you can do your association rule mining using a priori algorithm, or you could also do this association rule mining by using the FP growth algorithm. So these are the 2 different algorithms which will help you to identify the frequent item sets, that's all. This will not help you to identify the rules, this will simply help you to identify the frequent item sets. So once you identify the frequent item sets, from there you can further go ahead and find out which are all the rules and which rules are the strongest ones and everything. And in order to identify the strong association rules, okay, you have 2 things to be considered in mind. One is your support has to be greater than support threshold, and the confidence has to be greater than the confidence threshold. So where do we get this support threshold and confidence threshold? Normally that will be given in the question as such. Okay, so that will be provided by your DB, or that will be provided by the person who is doing this data mining process. So they will be providing you these details. Or else, if nobody have given you anything, please assume. So you could write a statement like assuming the support threshold being so and so, and assuming the confidence threshold being so and so, you could just do that. So that is how you will do this. So in association rule mining algorithm, there are 2 different steps. One is finding the frequent item set, second one is nothing but the strong association rules. And for finding the frequent item sets, you have 2 different algorithms you can use one at a time, okay, and they are the a priori algorithm and FP growth algorithm. So understand when you are using this a priori and FP growth, you are just identifying the frequent item sets, that's all. Again, in order to complete your whole process of association rule mining, you need to go ahead with the second step, okay. So that step will help you to identify all the association rules from these frequent item sets, okay. Say if you have two frequent item sets, you have to find out the association rule for the first frequent item set, then you have to also find the association rule for the second frequent item set. Then from that, you need to apply again another formula to find out which all has to be considered, okay. So which all could be recommended to the store manager so that he can increase his sales, okay. So that is what we have to understand here very clearly. Now there is when we will see about the a priori algorithm. So so we need to understand this a priori. So this is the first step. So identifying all the frequent item sets. So before moving on to what a priori or how a priori algorithm works, you need to understand there is a basic rule which follows in which has to be understood in a priori property. It is called as a priori property. So in a priori property, it just says that all non-empty subsets of a frequent item set must also be frequent. Say I have 10 different items. In that, say consider I got the frequent item set as I1, I2 and I5. Just consider I have got the one of my frequent item set is I1, I2 and I5. Say just consider this is the frequent item set. Say if this is the frequent item set, what this property says is that all non-empty subsets, okay, so you need to find out all the subsets of the I1, I2, I5. So what is a subset of I1, I2, I5? It could be I1, it could be I2, it could be I5 and it could be two frequent item sets. So I1, I2, I1, I5 and I2, I5 and it could be 3. So it could be either I1, I2, I5. So these are the various subsets, okay. So it could be one item frequent set, it could be 2 item frequent set, it could be 3 item frequent set, okay. It just says that if you have identified, say by the a priori algorithm, if you have identified I1, I2, I5 as the frequent item set, then all of its subsets will also be frequent. So if you know that bread, butter, jam it's bought together, then you could say that bread and butter is also bought together and bread and jam is also bought together, okay, frequently. So that kind of an understanding, so it's kind of a chain process. So that has to be understood by this particular property. So this is nothing but this property. It is called as a priori property, okay. Sometimes you may feel bit vague at this particular point. Don't worry, as you go further you will understand it better. Now what is the working of the a priori algorithm? So this kind of an algorithm you cannot see anywhere, okay. This is the simplest algorithm, which is so there are certain steps, okay. There are this number of steps could be just any number of steps. So just understand what you're planning to do is, so a priori algorithm is basically called as a candidate generation algorithm because it generates candidates at each and every step. So don't worry about what is this candidate generation and all those stuff. It is as simple as that. As you have seen here, see if you have three different items like this, okay, you could say this is your C1. So what is C1? C1 is nothing but you are taking your one item frequent set. And what is your C2? C2 is nothing but 2 item frequent set. And what is C3? C3 is a 3 item frequent set. So these are the candidates. So these candidates we will have a bit more, we have to do a small operation to get exactly what the C2 is. So just understand that is a frequent item set. So what you have to do is that you have to find out C1 and then you have to get the support count for all the items in the C1. Then you need to generate L1, okay. So how will you generate L1? L1 is nothing but, say for your C1, if you have support count, that support count has to be greater than or equal to the minimum support count. So whenever you do an a priori algorithm, you will be given with a minimum support count and a minimum confidence, okay. So these are the steps which comes in. So this candidate generation and this L1 generation is repeated many number of times till you reach this LK. Whenever this LK becomes null, you will stop your whole iterative process. So we will learn about what this C1 is, what is LK is. So you may feel it is bit vague at this particular point, but don't worry. Okay. So when Lk becomes null, what you have to do? You need to go back. You need to go back to Lk minus 1 and you will take all the frequent item sets from that particular stage. Say if L4 is becoming null, then what will you do? You will go to L3 and you will take all the frequent item sets from there. So that is what you basically do. So you need to generate C1, C2, C1, then from C1 you will generate L1, right? Then again you will generate C2, and how will you generate C2? You will generate C2 by joining L1 and L1. Then again you will generate L2 from that. Then you will again generate. So it just goes on like that. So till how many times you will go? Yeah, you will go till your Lk becomes null. Okay. Now say if your Lk becomes null, what will you do? Yes, I need to go back to the previous, the previous stage and layer, and then I need to take all the frequent item sets from there. Don't worry, we will see an example. So let's consider this example. Okay, it's an all electronic. So it's a database which is given to you. So you have got almost 9 different transactions which happens here. And in your problem itself, your minimum support count is given as 2. So these are the two major information which you have to keep in mind. You have given with a set of transactions. So there are 9 different transactions which is happening. And how many items are there? Yes, you have got I1, I2, etc. up to I5. So 5 different transactions are 5 different items are there in your transactions. Okay. So 5 different items are there: I1, I2, I3, I4 and I5. These are the 5 different items. And how many transactions are there? 9 transactions are there. And what is your minimum support count? 2. Now, what is the step 1? So I told you the first step is nothing but generation of C1. So when you generate C1, because you have to start somewhere, right? So you need to start somewhere. So what you will do is that you will consider C1 as the one frequent item set. So what is one frequent item set? So how many item sets are there? Yeah, you have got I1, you have got I2, you have got I3, you have got I4, you have got I5. So 5 different items are there. So you will consider them one at a time. So what is the occurrence of I1? So I1, how many times I1 has occurred? So I1 has occurred 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I1 has occurred 6 times. So its support count is 6. So this is how you will initially create C1. Okay, just understand. You will simply scan through your database and just get the number of the count for each and every item in the transactions. Okay, say you will take I2. So how many I2 is there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So your support count is 7. Now likewise you will do for I3, I4 and I5. So say if we take I5, 1, then 2. So 2. So this is nothing but your C1. So initially to start with, you will traverse through your whole database. You will identify what is your I1, what is a one frequent item set for each and every item in the data set. Okay. So hope you understood how will you start with C1. Now, what is your next step? You need to identify L1. So once you find C1, then you need to identify L1. How will you identify L1? So for that, you require the support of minimum support. So minimum support is actually given as 2. So you have got the C1. From the C1, whichever which satisfies the condition that it has got a minimum support of 2 or above, that would be taken as L1. So here you have the count of I1 as 6. Yes, it is greater than 2. Here you have 7, it is greater than 2. For I3 the count is 6, it is greater than 2 or equal to 2, and here I4 and I5 also it is greater than or equal to 2. So what will be your L1? All that is there in the C1 is basically transferred to your L1 also. Okay. So compare candidate support count with minimum support count. This is what you need to do for getting the L1. Okay. So you understood how you got the C1. Initially you are just taking all the items, you are just getting the count, and then you are actually comparing it with the minimum support count to check whether, say just consider, say if this I5 has got a count of 1, what will happen? You will simply ignore it. So when you consider L1, you will have all the other items other than I5. So you will ignore this I5 at all. You will not take this I5 at all in L1. That is what you will do. But here in our case, in our example, everything is satisfied. So we have taken everything. So this is your step 1. So you have generated C1, then you have compared your the support count of each and every item, that is one frequent item, okay, with the minimum support count. Whichever is satisfied, those is taken as the elements in L1, right? Now, we will repeat the process. Now, how will you generate C2? Because when you started with C1, you don't have anything to start with, so you started with this, right? Now, when you start with C2, there is a formula to be followed. What is that? You need to join L1 cross L1. Okay. So, what is L1? You know what is L1. This is your L1. So, how will you find out L1 cross L1? That means I1, I2. That means all the subsets I1, I2. Then what is the next subset? I1, I3. Then what is the next subset? I1, I4, I1, I5. Then again I2, I3, I2, I4, I2, I5. Then what is the next one? I3, I4, I3, I5. Then what is the last one? I4, I5. These are the subsets. So, you are actually making L1 cross L1, join L1. So, this is nothing but your C2. So, your C2 is nothing but L1 cross L1, okay, where you will simply combine all the L1 into L1. So, what is the C2 basically? The C2 is nothing but 2 frequent item set. Okay, this is nothing but the 2 frequent item sets. It contains 2 items in each set. Okay, so that's why it is called as 2 item the combination of 2 items. Now, how will you, so what you have to do? So, now you got what is C2, then what you have to do? You need to find the support count. So, how will you find out the support count? Say the first item is I1, I2. So, you will check in this transactional database, right? So, in this database, you have to check. What will you check? You will check how many transactions has got I1, I2 together. So, this has got I1, I2 together, this has got I1, I2 together, this has got I1, I2 together, this has got I1, I2 together. So, 4 transaction has got I1, I2 together. Now, what is I1, I3? So, you will again check in the transaction how many times I1, I3 has occurred together. So, I1, I3 here, then I1, I3 here, then I1, I3 here, I1, I3 here. So, 4 times. Okay. So, like that, you will get the count of all the transactions, the 2 frequent item set item sets, and what is the frequency of each of the 2 item sets that you will find from the main database. So, once you understand that, what you have to do? So, the support count is done. So, once you get the support count, so what you have to do? You need to find out what is L2. What is L2? You will be comparing the support count of C2 with the minimum support count. What is the minimum support count? Minimum support count is 2, right? So, you will take, can you take this I1, I2? Yes, I can take this I1, I2. Then can we take this I1, I3? Yes, we can take that. Can we take this I1, I4? No. Why? Because it has got a support count which is less than minimum support count, that is 2. So, we will ignore this I1, I4. Can we take this I1, I5? Yes. Can we take this I2, I3? Yes. Can we take this I2, I4? Yes. Yes. Here, these 3. Can we take the last 3? No. Why? Because that doesn't, that is basically less than the minimum support count 2. So, we will ignore 1, 2, 3, 4. We will ignore. The rest we will transfer it to L2 and we got the L2. Now, we will repeat the same process. What we will do? We need to find out C3 first. So, what is C3? C3 is nothing but L2 joining L2. So, we will join L2. So, what happens is that this is your L1, L2. So, what we will do? So, we have to join I1, I2, join I1, I3. So, there is a common term, right? So, they are sets. So, the sets, the elements in the set has to be unique, right? So, what will be the output? Your output will be I1, I2, I3, right? Now, again I1, I2 join, okay, I1, I5. So, I1, this I1 and this I1 are common. So, what we will do? I1, I2, I5. Now, again I1, I2 join I2, I3. So, I2 is common here. So, what we will do? I1, I2, I3. Again I1, I2 join I2, I4. I2 is again common. So, I1, I2, I4. Again I1, I2 join I2, I5. So, what happens? I2 is common. So, I1, I2, I5. Say if in case something you have already taken, then you don't have to consider that. Okay. Otherwise, you have to do it. So, in some cases, just let me consider this. So, in some cases, what happens is when you do a join operation, say I1, I5, I2, I3. So, what will be your join? Your join value will be I1, I5, I2, I3, right? So, it basically comes to 4 item sets, right? But can we take the 4 item sets? We are actually forming the 3 item sets, 3 frequent item sets. But here when you combine this I1, I5, I2, I3, you are getting 4 elements in that item set. So can we take that? No, you cannot take. You can take only 3 item, 3 frequent item sets. And if there is any repetition, you don't have to repeat it. You have to take it only once. That is the 2 things which you have to consider here. Okay. So like that, what you have done, you have actually taken all the ones which are the 3 frequent item sets. So that is your C3. Now what you have to do? Now you need to find out the support count. How will you find out the support count? Say if we take the first item I1, I2, I3, what we will do? We will go and check in the transactional database how many times this I1, I2, I3 has repeated. Okay. The frequency of I1, I2, I3 together. So frequency of I1, I2, I3 together is 1, then 2, I1, I2, I1, I2, I3. So 2 times. So 2 times it has the frequency of I1, I2, I3 is 2 times. Now what is the next one? I1, I2, I5. I1, I2, I5. So here 1 time, then the first one. So 2 times. Then what is the frequency of I1, I2, I4? So I1, I2, I4. So only 1 time. Okay. And then I2, I3, I4, it's not there at all. So it is 0. So like that you have to find out the support count of each and every 3 frequent item set. Now what you have to do? How will you form this L3? How will you form the L3? Yeah, when you form the L3, what you have to do is that you need to ignore all this. So you are comparing basically the support count with the minimum support count. What is the minimum support count? 2, right? So you have to compare each and every value with the minimum support count. So when you compare that, what will you get? You will get only, so you will ignore this one, this one, this one, this one, everything will be ignored. Only these 2 will be there. So you will be getting these 2 as the L3. Hope you understood. Now again we will repeat the same thing. So how will you repeat the same thing? So you have these 2, right? So you have to form C4, and C4 is nothing but L3 cross L3. So L3 cross L3, right? So I1, I2, I3 cross I1, I2, I5. So what will happen? You will get I1, I2, okay, I1, I2, I3, I5, because these 2 are common, right? These 2 are common. So I1, I2, I3, I5, right? So this is nothing but what? Your C4. C4 is I1, I2, I3, I5. This is your C4. Now what you have to do? You need to find out in the transactional database, you know, how many times it is repeated. So what is that? I1, I2, I3, I5. So I1, I2, I3, I4 has the frequency is only 1 time. It's just 1 time. The frequency is 1. So we have written the frequency as 1. Okay. Now what we will do? So as it is 1, when we form the L4, what happens? You have to compare the support count with the minimum support count. What is the minimum support count? 2. But what is the support count of I1, I2, I3, I5? It is 1, right? So do we need to consider this? No. So what happens? Your L4 becomes null. Okay. So it is less than the minimum support count. So we will drop it. Right. So understood. So now what is that? So we have already seen in the algorithm, whenever your LK becomes null, so this is the termination condition. You have to just repeat the process, like you have to find C1, then you have to find L1, then you have to again find C2, L2, it just goes like that. But whenever you reaches this particular stage, what you have to do? You need to go back to LK minus 1 and take all the item sets which are there as the frequent item sets. Okay. So when we go here, we understood that it is time to stop the process. So what we will do? So our LK is null, right? So what we will do? We will go to LK minus 1. So LK is basically 4 here. So we have to go to LK minus 1. So that is L3. So in our L3, basically we have got, this is the data sets. See, these are the item sets. Okay. So we will say that the frequent item sets are I1, I2, I3 and I1, I2, I5 according to a priori algorithm. Okay. So this a priori is also written like this. So it is like kind of a level wise search. Why it is a level wise search? Because we will find C1, then we will find C2. So we need L1. So we are just, you know, going by levels. Okay. And also you need to understand that in order to get this frequent item set L3, you need to explore till L4. Okay. You need to go till L4 in order to get the, what is that? The frequent item sets, which is actually there in L3, right? So all this, you know, things when you read, you should be able to understand. So this is the whole thing which we have seen now. So we have our C1, right? So C1 we have just taken all the 1 frequent item sets to summarize, okay, and then we have taken the support counts from the database. Then we have compared it with the minimum support count. So we got L1. So this is the minimum support count is satisfied. So everything is there. Then for finding C2, what you have to do? So because initially we don't had anything to start with. So we took with the 1 frequent item set. But here in C2, we have L1. So we need to consider C2 is nothing but L1 join L1. So we got all the 2 frequent item set. Then we found the count of everything, support count of all the 2 frequent item set. Then we compared it with the minimum support count. So if the minimum support count is, if the support count is less than the minimum support count, we ignore them. All others has been taken, and that is nothing but your L2. Then again, what you will do? What will you do? You need to form C3. That is nothing but L2 join L2, right? So again, what you will do? You will find the support count here, and then if anything is lesser, you will leave it and you will get this. So this is what you have actually done, okay? And now basically one more thing which you have to add in this is, okay, so a priori basically uses 2 different steps. Say you are having C1 and you are doing something in L1, right? So basically in your candidate generation, basically 2 steps are there. That is, for getting your C2, you need L1 cross L1. So that is kind of a join operation, okay? Say for getting the C3, what are you doing? You are basically combining or joining L2 cross L2, right? Now there is another operation called, okay, so we are taking just this particular step, okay, another operation called pruning step. So we will just understand what is this pruning. So pruning is a step which basically use the property a priori property, and you know what is an a priori property. Say if we get certain item sets, we consider that its subsets are automatically frequent. That is what the a priori property is. So we will just understand, you know, how are we getting this, okay. So before moving over to this, we could actually have a reduction step here. So the pruning is basically a reduction step, okay. So that's why in this particular example, see here the C3 is this box, but here if you say you have everything, so why is it so? So that is what we are going to understand. So just consider this is your C3. This is your actual C3. This is your C3 with all the three frequent item sets, and these are all the counts, okay. So how can we prune, okay, how can we do the pruning step, or how can we do the reduction step here, or how can we remove the redundant data, okay, here before moving over to L3, okay. That is what we are going to see here. So what we could do is that, say I told you it uses, for pruning we uses the a priori property, okay. So pruning is not this step, okay, this step is not pruning. From within this particular step, we can have an intermediate step before moving over to this comparison step, okay. Before moving over to the comparison step to generate L3, we can have an intermediate step here. That is what we are telling, that is nothing but the pruning. So your joining and the pruning comes before this comparison of support count with the minimum support count, okay. So it is not the step which generate L3, don't misunderstand. So joining and the pruning comes here, okay, this part it comes here, okay. So this is the join, so that's why the join, with the join only you got all this. Now basically if you simply take the support count, these are all the support count, but before moving over to this L3, you can have a reduced C3 or a pruned C3. How can we get that? That is what we are going to understand, okay. So now how can we get the modified C3 or the pruned C3, okay, that is what is here. So what we are basically doing is that we will apply the a priori property. What is a priori property? We have, say, we are taking the first item set, okay, I1, I2, I3. What is a priori property? The first thing is nothing but we need to take all of its what? All of its, okay, we have to take all of its subsets. So what are the subsets of I1, I2, I3? The first subset is I1, then the second subset can be I2, the third subset can be I3, okay. So these are the 3 different subsets, and then you can also have the combination of I1, I2, okay, then I2, I3, then you can have the combination of I1, I3, okay. So these are all other subsets of what is that? I1, I2, I3. So basically if you are at the 3 frequent item set, what you will do is you will take all the two item subsets. So, which all are the two item subsets of I1, I2, I3? The two item subsets of I1, I2, I3 are I1, I2, I1, I3, I2, I3. Do you agree with me? So, these are the three different two item subsets of I1, I2, I3. So, we will take them. Now, what do we need to do? So, see, for the two item subsets of I1, I2, I3 are I1, I2, I1, I3, I2, I3. Now, what do we have to do? Now, we need to check in the previous L2. We have to check in the L2. So, this is C3. So, we are checking in L2, okay, whether they have some frequency there. That means, are they occurring there? So, I1, I2, it has got a frequency of 4, which is actually greater than minimum support count, right? Then we have got I1, I3, which has got 4, which is greater than I1, I2, sorry, which is greater than minimum support count 2. Then we have got I2, I3. What is I2, I3? It has also got 4, so which is greater than minimum support count. So, that means that if you are considering this particular item set, its subsets should also be frequent. Yes, it is frequent. Okay. So, we will retain this. That means, when you consider the pruned C3, so you are generating the modified C3 or the pruned C3. So, you will retain that. Now, we will consider, say you are considering this particular item, okay, I1, I3, I5. So, what are the two item subset of I1, I3, I5? The two item subset of I1, I3 and I5 are I1, I3, I1, I5, then I3, I5. So, what we will do? We will again go back and check here in L2, okay, the previous layer, okay, L2. So, what is the occurrence of I1, I3? Yes, it is 4, satisfied. Then I1, I5, it is 2, okay, it is less than or equal to, so it is satisfied. Then you have to see whether I3, I5. So, can you see any I3, I5 here? No, not at all. Or say if it is not at all there, or if it is 0, or if it is with a support count 0 or 1, what you will do? You cannot take this I1, I3, I5 at all. What is the meaning of it? So, that just tells you that you are coming out with an intermediate step of pruning in order to avoid the infrequent item sets. So, this is kind of an extra step which you could perform so that the computational complexity could be reduced in the a priori algorithm. Okay. So, basically what you will do, so in this particular thing you could understand. So, this C3 is basically the pruned C3. Are you able to follow? So, this is your pruned C3. So, in this particular step, if you see, this is your item set. So, this is your pruned C3. So, this is your pruned C3, and from the pruned C3 what you have done, you have compared the support count. So, the support count of these two is 2. That means that none of the other can be taken. So, none of the other things could be taken, only these two could be taken. So, all the others cannot be taken at all. Okay. So, that is all it is. Now, what will you do? You will compare it and you will take this. So, that is what you have done. So, just understand, in a priori basically there are two steps. It is basically a two-step process. So, the initial process itself is two-step. Okay. So, in that you will have your C3, and then you can have, so which is formed by the combination or the join operation of the previous L to whatever L is. Okay. And then before moving or before finding the next L, you can have another operation which is nothing but the reduction operation or the pruning operation, which is basically done with the help of a priori property. So, it helps to remove the unfruitful candidate by applying a priori property. So, that is what is basically we are doing here. So, either you could do like this, or even if you remove the pruning also, it's okay, but it is a bit more complex, that's all. So, you could do in all the different ways, that's fine. So, that is what your a priori is basically. So, now we have just understood a priori, and I have already told you a priori just helps you to identify the frequent item sets, that's it. Now, what is its next step? So, this a priori or finding the frequent item sets, it's just the first part of your association rule mining, right? So, the first step is over. What is that? So, how will you find out the frequency? So, what are the item sets? Okay, these are the two different item sets. So, you have got, you go back to, so your L4 was null. So, you went back to Lk minus 1. So, L4 minus 1, that is L3, and you took these two. So, these are the two frequent item sets which you got by applying the a priori algorithm over the data. Now, what is the second step? Second step is nothing but finding the strong association rules from the frequent item sets. So, you need to find out what are the rules which we could get from this frequent item set. You need to also find out all the rules which is possible from this item set. Then you need to also understand from all, say if you get 10 rules from this and 10 rules from this, so totally you have 20 rules, right? From this 10 rules, which one could be considered as strong? Which one could be considered as strong from these set of rules? So that you have to understand. So for that, you just have to make sure that you satisfy the minimum support and the minimum confidence. So for the second part, basically you require the minimum confidence to be given. Okay, so that has also to be told in the problem. If it is not told, then you have to assume it. So it's very easy algorithm. The second part, generation of strong association rule, it is very simple. So what you have to do is that for each frequent item set I, okay, say we have two different frequent item sets here. So for each one we have to take, what we have to do, we need to generate the rules first, then we need to apply this particular formula, okay, and if each of the rule is basically greater than or equal to minimum confidence, then you could keep it, otherwise you can ignore it. So it's as simple as that. So what we will do is, we are considering the first rule here. We had two different rules, so we are considering this rule I1, I2, I5. So L, say L is nothing but I1, I2, I5. Okay, this is one of the rule from L3, one of the frequent item set from L3. Okay, so your L is I1, I2, I5. Okay, now what you have to do, the first step is very simple. Okay, this is the box which you have to keep in mind. Okay, first thing is nothing but you need to find all the non-empty subsets. So what are the non-empty subsets of this L? Okay, you have L1, then you have L2, then you have L5, then you will have two combinations. So L1, L2, then L1, L5, then I2, I5, then I2, I1, I5, right? So these are the all different subsets. Now what you have to do, you need to find out the rule. Okay, you have to find out the rule. So what is the rule? Rule is nothing but S implies L minus S. So what is S? S, so you will consider each one as the S. So this is the S. So it's kind of an iterative process. So when the S is this one, you need to find out this rule. From when the S is this one, you need to find out this one, right? So say considering this as the S. Now at the first iteration, say considering this as the S. So what is your rule? I1 implies L minus S. What is L? I1, I2, I5. I1, I2, I5 difference S, that is difference I1. Okay, so that means, say this is exactly like the difference operation which we will see in the sets. Say your I is I1, I2, I5. Now say just consider your S is I1, I2. How will you do that? L minus S is nothing but, say if there is anything common, you will cut it. Okay, whatever is remaining, that will be your answer. That's all. Okay, so whatever is, so you have I1 in common, I2 in common, I5 is not there, so I5 will be the answer. Say if you are doing I1, I2, I5, then S is also I1, I2, I5, then nothing is common, so it's 5. It's a null set. Okay, so like that. Say here you have I1, I2, I5. Okay, I1, I2, I5 difference L1. So what is the remaining one? I2, I5. So I2, I5. So your first rule is, you are forming the first rule. Okay, S implies L minus S. So what is S? S is L1 implies L minus S. So L minus S is I2, I5. In the same way, you will be repeating. So now you will consider I2 as the S. So S implies I1, I2, I5 minus L2. So what is the remaining one? I1, I5. You got it. Now in the same way you will be repeating it. So the final one alone will be like, I1, I2, I5 minus difference I1, I2, I5, which will be null. So you will simply ignore this at all. Okay, you will not use it at all. Now what is the next one? Next one is nothing but finding the confidence using this formula. Okay, this is the formula for considering this one. So how will you do that? So you need to find out the support count of L divided by support count of S. So from where can you find out the support count? Yes, you have already found these tables, right? Okay, so from here only we will find out the support count. So what is the support count of L? What is L? I1, I2, I5. So where we have to go and check? We need to go and check in the 3 frequent item support count list. So what is I1, I2, I5? What is the support count 2? Okay, always. So always here it is basically support count of L divided by, so only this S changes each and every time. So all your numerators for all this will be 2 only. So you don't have to worry about it now. Now what is that? Divided by support count of S. Say when the S is L1, how will you find out? You will go to the one frequent item set and check whether what is I1. What is the support count of I1? 6. Okay. So 2 by 6. Now, what is support count of this rule? When you consider this rule, it is nothing but support count of L. So support count of L is 2 divided by support count of 2. What is support count of 2? 7. So 2 by 7. Now, support count of I5. So 2 divided by what is support count of I5? 2. Okay. Now, this one, when you consider this one, you have to say 2 divided by support count of I1, I2. So, you need to go to the I1, I2. Okay. The two frequent items set I1, I2, it is 4. So, you have to give 2 by 4. Now, I1, I5. What is the support count of I1, I5? It is 2. So, 2 by 2 again. Now, I2, I5. What is that support count of? It's again 2 by 2. And this we are ignoring, so we don't have to worry. So, you will get all this. Okay. So, this is what you will get by the confidence. These are the confidence which you will get. Now, how will you find out? So, you got all the rules. Okay. You have got all the rules. You have got all the confidence. So, what did you do in the second step? So, the second step in a priori is nothing but generating the strong rules. So, when you find out the strong rules, what are you doing? You are taking each frequent item set from the as the output of a priori, right? That is each of the frequent item set. Then you are finding all the non-empty subsets. Then you are forming the rule with this particular rule. Then you are calculating the confidence. So, this is what you have done. Now, how will you find out the strong association rule? Okay, it is very simple. So, you will look over to say consider your minimum confidence percentage is 70%. So, consider if you are considering, say, given that your minimum confidence is 70%, all the rules which is equal to 70 or greater than 70 will be taken, all the others will be ignored. So, 33.33, is it greater than or is it less than or less than or equal to 70%? No. Okay. It should be greater than or equal to 70%? No. So, it is ignored. This is ignored. Yes, we could take this because it is 100%, 50%, it is ignored. This could be taken, this could be taken. So, what all will be the rules? So, we will see all this 100%. So, this 100% is basically this one. So, this is rule. So, this rule could be taken. So, I5 implies, so whenever a person is buying I5, there is a high frequency that he will also buy I1, I2. So, this is a frequently seen pattern. So, that we will take. Then, which is greater than 70% is this rule. So, we will take I1, I5 implies I2. The next rule which is frequently seen is I2, I5 implies I1. So, these are the three different rules for the frequent item set I1, I2, I5. These are the three different strong association rules which you could consider or which you could basically recommend to the store manager so that he can rearrange the items and he could increase the sales. Okay. So, like that what you have to do, you need to also find first. So, you need to repeat the process for the next item set. What is the next item set? Next item set is basically I1, I2, I3. This also you have to repeat the same process. Okay. You need to find out all its corresponding non-empty subsets, then you need to form the rules, then you need to form the confidence, then whichever rules is greater than 70, greater than or equal to 70, those rules you need to take it for I1, I2, I5. Okay. So, hope you understood. In association, so association rule mining is basically used for market basket analysis, right? And when you do this market basket analysis, you have two different steps in it. One is nothing but finding the frequent item sets. The second one is generating the strong association rules from the frequent item sets which you have formed. And for finding the frequent item sets, you have two different algorithms. One is a priori and the second one is FP growth. Okay. And here in this particular session, we are actually explaining a priori. Okay. In a priori, what you have to do, you have got two simple steps. One is that you have to, it is a candidate generation algorithm. So, you have to generate the candidate C1 and from that you have to generate L1. So, this is the frequent step. So, it has got two different steps in between. One is join step and the other one is pruning. Okay. In join step, you will join. So, in order to find C2, you need to use L1 cross L2. And in order to find L2, before moving over to L2, you could do the prune step if possible, right? Otherwise, in order to find L2, what you have to do is that you need to compare the support count which you got for the C2 with the minimum support count. That is how you will do. Till how many times you will do? You will just do it till your L, whatever be the number, becomes null. So how will you take the frequent sets? Yes, you will take the previous frequent sets you will be taken. So once you got that, you need to do the second step, that is nothing but generate the strong association rules by this way. So this is what the a priori algorithm is. So just go through that. And so now we have seen the complete implementation of association rule mining using a priori algorithm. In the same way, we do have one more algorithm, that is FP growth algorithm. We will see in the next class. Thank you so much.